What's going on, everybody? Dan Tom here. We are live. Just going to get a quick tweet as I simultaneously test for some sound. We'll get going. How are you guys doing? Hopefully quarantine is going well. We're all not going too crazy. We'll talk about some people that maybe, maybe are. So as I tweet this live link out, we'll get started with the topics listed above, and hopefully more of you will start to pile in. We can make the show a bit more interactive. All right. Got that. Discard. Yeah, we'll be talking about what's in the news very briefly, but also going to introduce some topics. So we're just not talking about all the COVID-19 nonsense. Going to give you guys 5 lightweight fights worth revisiting, at least, in my opinion. And you can agree or disagree with me there. And also going to list 5 of my favorite half guard practitioners in MMA, 5 fighters who make the half guard work very, very well. Boy, I hate doing this Twitter desktop here. It is annoying. All righty. There we are. Perfecto. All right. Live now. Amateur hour, I know. Don't let the young face fool you, folks. I'm like closer to like a boomer, minus the political beliefs and all that stuff, because that's not what we discuss here. All right, folks. What we do discuss are the topics. Let me take these silly things off. Hopefully you guys can hear me. All right. All righty. All right. Again, topics, like I said, we're going to be doing our weekly focus. So again, kind of like I said, our first show, these live MMA chats, if you will, we're going to do these instead of breakdown shows, which is traditionally what the Protect Your Neck podcast. And I do kind of breaking down live events. We don't really have live events to really look forward to right now, except for UFC 249, which we will discuss. That is a talking point, the proverbial super card that Dana White's teasing. Where is it going to go? Who could it possibly feature? What about the existing cards? What about other things that happen? Like fighters have to go to the hospital and all that nonsense. We'll be touching on that as well. But yeah, we're going to be doing these kind of live chats here just instead of the breakdown shows. And when the breakdown shows come back, these kind of, MMA live chats will be more like recap shows, and we'll come back and do these after the event. But until that happens, I'm going to be doing weekly recs and a weekly focus. So again, I already gave you guys, well, I will give you guys the recommendations, but I already stated what the topic will be. 5 lightweight fights to revisit and weekly focus, MMA's best half guard players. Now I'm going to be dancing around these topics a little bit as far as top 5s go, because again, I also do top 5 shows via the Protect Your Neck podcast, and we truncate those into nice video versions for you over at MMAJunkie.com for the Fight Vault series, Fight Vault flashbacks, the Fight Vault, if you will. So we won't be overtreading on those topics, so I'll have to be careful there. But with your help, hopefully, feel free to comment in the chat. Whether you have a top 5 topic, I'll do my best to jot it down. In fact, I'll be doing a top 5 this weekend with my buddy Jordan Killian. I will tweet out that topic tomorrow, but that topic was actually given to us by at Braschuk there over at the MMA Analysis podcast. He actually shot me a really good one. We're going to tackle that one. Got some more coming with you later. Hey, thanks for saying hi, James. James Lynch, one of the best journalists. If you're not following him or subscribing his channels, I don't know what you're doing. Like I tweeted earlier this week. James is one of the best, whether you're a fan or you're trying to get into this crazy business. So I don't know why you would, but if you are, James is a guy to follow. Thanks, James. Too kind. He's saying some nice things that I'm not going to repeat because I'm too self-deprecating, but I appreciate it, James. And yeah, so that'll be our kind of repertoire here. And again, I'm not a doctor. I'm not an authoritative figure. I don't think of myself as either, believe me. So if we do talk about current events, it will be tethered to MMA. We're not going to get lost into that rabbit hole. Plenty of options for you to get lost there. All right, off the top, I actually put this one at the top because it's kind of what's been getting talked about. I mean, like, you just turn on the Twitter timeline and, you're worried about more COVID-19 talk and political stuff. And oh no, what does Twitter have in store for us today? Don't you worry. Don't you fret. MMA is going to MMA. MMA has stayed the same. So we've got Jon Jones popping off rounds from a Glock 44. I mean, I knew Glock has expanded its caliber over the last like decade and beyond. I'm sure gun nuts can come at me there and explain it much better. But yeah, Glock 44. It's a nice piece. He was toting there, and fortunately was firing it off while drinking Jorge Masvidal's mezcal. I do like Jorge Masvidal's mezcal. I have a bottle myself. My mom made me toast to her. When she got out of surgery. That okay. That's how I used it to celebrate. Jon Jones, he gets behind the wheel of a car and pops off rounds. Tomato. Everybody has their own way to do things. So then, not much you can say there, right? Perry released a video of him KOing somebody, and initially I'm just like, okay, maybe Mike Perry's so bored that he's like, I got this sweet video. It's been about 10 years, they can't be prosecuted for this anymore, or whatever, the amount of time, right? Statute of limitations have passed, or, like Mike Perry really is going to think about the statute of limitations, but I don't know. He's got experience with the legal system is all I'm saying. I would hope that would come across, but no, he posts like a video that looks like yesterday or something, like the weekend before when people were still congregating at clubs. And I didn't see what takes place before or after, but essentially, if anybody's striking a physical pose or anything, it's actually Perry. And of course, he throws the first and really only punch. It was one and done, and it was rough to watch, especially when their head goes back and hit. And again, I know I'm in the wrong business here if I'm weak stomach to head trauma, but I'm also sensitive to head trauma because, your boy suffered it himself too. So when I'm going to use air quotes stealing allegedly, medical supplies that were donation, obviously went through this app to pick up a free couch and whatnot. I'm not familiar with the app, but those things don't surprise me. And I guess there was some medical supplies for donation left without a note, according to Ashley Evan Smith's side of the story. And there was some drama there if you follow those posts. Just, make sure you read everything and see all the interviews and hear both sides before you make judgment there. But, you kind of loop all that together. It's kind of crazy. Yeah. Kind of crazy. Like you can't say MMA is missing a beat during this quarantine. Let's attach some. We'll do the workout stuff at the end. Actually, Dana White supercard promise UFC 249. So of course Dana White still doubling down on the promise to make it happen, and Tony Khabib is one of the only fights that get even a jaded, MFer like myself all jacked up. So I'm with you guys there. I want to see it. I don't want it to be cursed, but I also want to see them at their best. And, a lot of people are raising the point of how training camp's going. I saw Aljamain Sterling's tweet getting passed around there. And obviously he's not the only one, but he is more of a spotlighted character, obviously. So it makes sense that it's being shared around. And is essentially saying, my gym's closed. How am I supposed to train for a fight and whatnot? We're seeing fighters get creative, whatnot. I think I was watching, some fighters are couples. Like, for example, UFC's Emily Whitmire and Johnny Case. So they're working out together. Like, that's great if you're cooped up with another fighter. That's awesome. The girl I'm cooped up with kickbox. I'm trying to get her to grapple now, and stuff like that. Like you got to make ends do, but I'm not training for a fight. People that are doing quarantine workouts, which we'll talk about briefly. Again, I'm going to try to keep all these under 30 minutes. That's great. And I encourage everybody to do those things for their health, but we're talking about getting into a cage fight here. And that's going to be real interesting. And, some fighters are going to want to do it anyways. They've got mouths to feed. They're dedicated to, their ideology, cause, motivations, all those things. That's fine. That's their decision. But you got to wonder, are we going to be getting a subpar product? And regardless of these fights, which I'll throw some fantasy and fun speculation in a second here, so it won't be all doom and gloom or anything, folks. But you do got to wonder. It's like, okay, like I want an awesome fight too, but like especially like in a fight that promises a lot of action to be quote unquote awesome and enjoyable, like Khabib versus Tony Ferguson. You guys seen a lot of Ferguson's recent fights, right? I mean, first of all, Khabib will dominate and beat on people. That will be enough to perhaps send them to the hospital afterwards. But if you watch Ferguson's fights, it's like he throws them in the ninja blender and they don't come out the same. They come out very bloody and cut up. So it makes me wonder, like, am I going to be in good conscience? One, enjoying these fights, knowing what's going on. We all kind of faced our own morality, albeit it wasn't as serious to some of us when UFC Brasilia was going down, but we're going to have to face that question regardless. But I'm saying like, and now if you even peel the onion further, like, okay, so now we're here, we made the sacrifice, we all made this complicit agreement, the fighters made their agreement, we're enjoying these fights. Now an awesome fight is happening. And it's like, am I going to be enjoying the fighters? Part of me going, oh, fuck, now these guys got to go to the pardon my French. This is going to be work on the cursing of this channel. Bear with me. When you go to the hospital now, it's not good. Like my stepdad actually had to go to the hospital. Unfortunately, that pancreatitis and bowel buildup. I'll spare you the details, but it was for good reason. And they did a great job. And I didn't go there to drop them off. I wasn't the person dropping them off or picking them up. But from what it sounds like, hospitals are already taking precaution, like splitting the hospitals in half as far as staff, patients, and just keeping COVID-19 separate from general pop or at risk, which was, my stepfather. He's, Vietnam vet, elderly, breathing problems, COPD, pre-existing, and was in the ICU for completely different things. So super at risk. He's back home. He's safe. But again, it made me not just aware, not that I needed that awareness or reminder, believe me, I've been taking this seriously, but it reminds you of what people are talking about. It's not just some Twitter talking point for woke points, folks. I mean, it's the medical systems aren't great. And we can point fingers and all that. That's not what this show's about. That's not what I'm about. But I'm not trying to stop you from doing so. But I'm just saying the bigger implication of, instead of blaming, let's just think of the bigger implication, which is people as a whole, all of us, and the effect. So we'll be sending, while these hospital workers are having to spray out Lysol and use their same face masks over and over again because their PPE, personal protective equipment, is really insufficient for many reasons. Again, not going to get into that. This isn't the show for that. They're struggling to keep up. You got places like New York that are already, reporting, really just awful things. And again, I'm not going to get too down deep into the rabbit hole. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. And so now it's like, oh wait, hold on, guy, hold on, Becky. We got more people coming in the ER. What from? Oh, a cage fight. Like what? Yeah. These guys, they volunteered. The men and women voluntarily fought in a cage while we're trying to save lives here. Now they are part of the workload too. And then those fighters, and what happens to them is then they also get exposed on their end. God forbid. So, but again, hopefully things die down. If any sport can return. MMA / the UFC with their control of production and just having this game down to a beat. Yes, they are. And I'm obviously, I work in this industry. So what's good for them business wise is good for me. But I don't, for better or worse, I don't think like that. I think more for the greater general good. So hopefully I'm just listening to what's going on. And we'll see what changes and what doesn't. And, as far as that goes, I'm not trying to, again, I don't agree with it, but I'm also not trying to sit here and always, have a pitchfork and a torch lit. And that's not my game. I'm trying to think more of solutions or possibilities. But yeah, that is a possibility that I can't stop thinking of, like, as far as throwing a card, sooner than later. As for the card itself, though, sorry, got hung up on that. There's talks about Yair Rozenstruik versus Francis Ngannou. Ngannou, of course, got a test that he is clear. He's training with my dude over there, Eric Nixick, over at Extreme Couture. He's in good hands, good access to a facility, which has been, they shut their doors, but again, on limited case-by-case scenarios, while it be fighters or private practice. I'm sure a lot of gyms are still operating in some capacity. But one thing I do wonder, and again, I'm sure Francis is following protocol outside of training programs. There's not much places to go, although people are out on the streets a lot here in Vegas. I don't know how it's by you folks, but like, you got to wonder, it's like, okay, so like if they do test the fighters ahead of time for this card and everybody passes the test, okay, are you testing them on fight week? And you're gambling that they were all going to pass the test. So what about their cornermen and the people they travel with? And maybe the exposure doesn't show up yet, but it shows up through later in the fight week. Or you get these tests out ahead of time. And even if you do it for the cornerman, okay, and the fighters, and let's just say they all come back negative, what happens even just within 1 week of that test coming back positive and them doing everything they got to do, including traveling on an airplane, on an incubated tube with recycling air, X amount of hours to X location. You know, I'm all for testing. I think testing is the most logical answer until we get the cure for this thing. I'm not saying it's not. Hopefully everybody gets drive up testing and all these different types of testing and that it's free, all these things. But that still is not exactly, the answer. Now, again, you can keep going down that rabbit hole. We'll never have fights again, Dan. Okay, I get it. I'm not trying to be that guy. I'm just saying that these are real thoughts. But past the doom and gloom, if you start stacking people like, Rosenstruck and inside shot there for Taking Neck podcast listeners, or Ngannou, definitely spices up the card. But what about the existing fights? Some of them are already kind of guaranteed. Dana was talking about Rose and Andrade too, is still guaranteed, and he was even saying the co-main event, which is kind of surprising. So you've got Rosenstruck and Ngannou still postponed 5-round main event, presumably training for a 5-rounder, and and it's not like Rose and Andrade are a title fight. Now I love Rose and Andrade, so I'm not complaining. Believe me, give the ladies a spotlight. I'm all for it. I'm just saying, it's going to get real hairy on how this card kind of gets shuffled together. So I think they're calling it super card, but I think it's going to be more apt to be called shuffle card. Okay. So things could get shuffled. And that's all if they book it, I'll have something to cover, hopefully a great fight to watch, but I'm not sure how much I'm going to be able to enjoy that great fight, knowing what the consequences and looming consequences are of throwing an event right now. All right, weekly Rex, 5 lightweight fights worth revisiting. Let's see, 17. All right, we're just over halfway through. Not too bad. All right. So I got some from kind of all over the board. I did have one for Bellator, but it was pretty obvious, which was Michael Chandler versus Eddie Alvarez one. So I took that off because I do have Eddie Alvarez in here. In fact, for a dream fight, Eddie Alvarez versus Tatsuya Kawajiri. Now, I was debating between this one and Joachim Hellboy Hansen. Look at me. I'm already breaking the rules. I'm going to give you more than 5 here, which was another fun fight that took place, I believe, right after this one. But Eddie Alvarez essentially was on his way up. He came out of nowhere and stormed his way onto the rankings. I'm not sure if he already beat or avenged. He got submitted by Aoki. But he was on the rise, and he was kind of just booming into the rankings. And Kawajiri, after suffering a loss, started kind of fighting a bit more conservative, so we weren't sure what we were going to get. And he initially starts off trying to control Alvarez, like he kind of did his 3 previous opponents. And you just see this fight go to a steady build that is just insane. It's essentially just 2 wrestle boxers from certain senses from different parts of the world just colliding. Because Alvarez, although he would use his wrestling in UFC tenure, a part of his career, against fights like Pettis and stuff, we had seen him leaning on it heavy. Excuse me, because he wrestled when he was younger, and we were seeing him use a lot of his wrestling, but it's usually more for a kind of a release valve of sorts to release pressure or to change up how he is applying said pressure. We're still seeing the amazing looping uppercuts, hooks, the body work. Oh, the body work from the clinch, the dirty boxing from Alvarez. And then Alvarez, of course, in vintage Eddie form, also getting stunned himself, dropped to the point where he's coming forward. And Alvarez gets dropped and he's on his knees swinging still like a rock'em sock'em robot. I mean, it was insane. Definitely go check that one out. Spencer Fisher versus Sam Stout too. They fought a trilogy, and they're really all not bad fights at all. But the rematch is arguably the best one. The first fight happened at UFC 58 or 59. I think it was that USA versus Canada card, right? And Stout took that one. And Spencer Fisher, even though he didn't really want to use it as an excuse, he did kind of take that fight on somewhat short notice, I believe, if how the story goes. And then in this other one, he was training with Pulver at the time, who was getting ready for Penn 2007 for the rematch. And Spencer Fisher gets the opportunity to fight Sam Stout again. And Fisher gets cut really bad. And you're kind of worried, how much the judge is going to weigh that. and his eye gets really messed up. Actually, I think it's his left eye. But he's coming forward, elbows, punches, knees, just southpaw pressure from Spencer Fisher. I mean, doing the Ric Flair woo before the crowd did it, before it got super annoying, of course, because Spencer Fisher's from North Carolina. So go check out that one. UFC Fight Night. God, I don't have it off my top of my head, maybe 10 or something. It was like one of the early ones. Wow. I think, yeah. We got also Takanori Gomi versus Jens Polar. This was it Shockwave 2004, I believe, off the top of my head. Usually I have it in notes. I didn't do my notes as good as my top 5 shows. Not as extensive here, but it's a great card. I was just talking about this card with somebody on Twitter. And I always say go to Gomi versus Pulver, not just because it's like two of the legendary lightweights who started the division. Like you got, if it's like a Mount Rushmore, the lightweight division, you got to have like Gomi and Pulver on there. Of course, BJ Penn would be on there as well. But, Gomi and Pulver are definitely dudes who would be on there. And I also say for body work, I did the Fight Vault flashback with Mark Hominick versus Yves Jabouin, featherweight fight granted, but was talking about even like back when that fight happened in 2008 or 2009, like MMA striking, obviously it's never been up to the levels like K1 kickboxing or boxing. But especially back then, you really didn't see stuff like bodywork, slips, really just head movement and combinations in sensible conjunction. You really didn't see those things kind of taking place. And this isn't quite as technical as that, albeit it's excusably much earlier even than the WEC meeting between Hominick and Jabouin. But Gomi and Pulver is a great example of body work. You see a lot of great body work in there, and it's the body work that quietly actually opens up the finish. Spoilers is like something that only seems to be getting worse these days, and even worse now during quarantine. So if you don't, for whatever reason, you don't know the result of this, just go watch it. Don't look at the result. I won't blow it for you. It's a fun fight. Eves Edwards versus Josh Thompson, UFC 49. I mean, how do you not? One of the ultimates on the Bob O'Reilly reel with the way that ends. Again, if you've been living on a different planet for all these years and you're not aware of what I'm talking about, avoid the spoilers. You're not going to get any from me because I actually respect those things. And go enjoy yourself a damn good, fun fight. And you will see why. I don't know if anybody's like ever like laid all this out, but you'll see why that the finish of this fight is like one of those forever things on the Bob O'Reilly highlight reel. And if they took it off, well, I'm confident to say that it will have the longest. It has and will have the longest run of any highlight. Let's see if this coffee is too hot. Shout out to Four Sigmatic Coffee. Brain on. All right. And lastly, but not leastly, Jim Miller versus Joe Lozon 1, UFC 155, John Anik's first pay-per-view call. And that was also, was that Velasquez dos Santos 3? What's up, Danish Khan? Dan, where can we watch the old Dream events? I haven't seen them on Fight Pass. Yeah, those ones you can't find on Fight Pass, unfortunately. However, the ones that I recommended, man, the whole events would be nice, wouldn't they? Boy, you know better than me. But as far as like the individual fights, you can find that Cowageri and even that Joaquim Hansen fight on YouTube. They got it in full. I mean, maybe sometimes you get that Daily Motion link when you use the old Google Pass. But yeah, that is it. Shouts, Danish Khan. Thank you for joining the chat once again. But yeah, I was doing Miller Lozon and I was actually playing it. It was great because again, I'm jealous if you haven't seen these fights, you get to go back and watch it for the first time. But if you don't, like, play these fights for somebody who haven't seen these fights, that, like, are just getting into the sport, and it's a reward in itself. Again, the girlfriend here was, she's into kickboxing, but she doesn't know a lot on MMA. Hasn't watched a lot. So I played her Miller versus Lozon, and she was just blown away. Like, this is an insane fight. And I played it for her for a specific reason, because when we were sparring, she's orthodox, I'm southpaw, and especially play sparring, like the Muay Thai style play sparring, I really like to do, instead of like leg kicks, inside leg kicks. One, because it's oftentimes I find myself in the open mirrored stance, where one person is orthodox and the other southpaw. I'm the southpaw, so I'll do the inside leg kick. But oftentimes I like to do it more of an off balance sweep low. It looks like it's like you're going toward the calf, but it's more you're just kind of hooking from the bottom of the calf down through the Achilles to the ankle. Anywhere in there, you're going low because it's sensitive, but you're not even swinging that hard. You're actually hooking up with it. And if you watch Jim Miller versus Joe Lozon. We remember the amazing fight as we should. We remember Joe Lozon's scissor sweep into a heel hook attempt at the end. That was very reminiscent to like how Anderson lost back in Pride to oh my god, that name, that's gonna bother me. It's gonna bother me. Why'd you reference something you can't think of, Dan? But we remember Joe Lozon doing that to Jim Miller. But the constant theme of that fight was that inside leg kick. It off balances and it runs them right into the check hook, and you've got a left-handed return that you can do head, body, or up elbow, as Jim Miller was spamming beautifully in that fight. So go back and watch those fights. 25 minutes. All right, we're gonna wrap with the weekly focus and some workout regime / playlist stuff. Quick notes on that, and we'll be out of here. Feel free to jump in. As you can see, I've been answering or addressing anybody who jumps in whenever. No rules here. The lunatics run the asylum, just like on the podcast, Protect Your Neck podcast. You can find on iTunes. Go to mixedmartialanalyst.com. Has a link to that. Has a link to the Onnit. Click through the Amazon. Click through. We all need vitamins and protein from Onnit. I know everybody's using Amazon. There's a lot of companies are keeping their doors open, without shame. Whereas I could never be ahead of these companies because I can't even ask for money for my measly podcast. So since I'm terrible at that and don't feel like I deserve it, a good way if you want to support the show, you just click through for your shopping at mixedmartialanalyst.com, whether it's Amazon or Onnit. A small percentage comes back to help this channel, my podcast as well. And you don't got to spend a dime, and I don't got to feel guilty for asking you for anything. Deal. All right. The weekly was on best half guards. So I did 5 different fighters, and they all use different style of half guards. So I'm going to go 5 to 1. Starting at number 5, we have Ioana Jędrzejczyk. You didn't expect to hear that name, did you? Ioana Jędrzejczyk for the defensive hands. Ryo Chonin. Thank you, Danish Khan. You the man. Ryo Chonin. How did I forget Ryo Chonin? Yeah, that real creepy eye. All right, Dan, come on. Let's not knock the guy. You forgot his name. All right. But Ioana Jędrzejczyk for the defensive half guard. As I detail a lot, that's Benjamin in the background. Apologies. So I detail a lot in my breakdowns on Jędrzejczyk fights. She's really good about it. Even when girls have got her down in a half guard, we'll see her re-swim her leg back in, get it back in play, get into a half guard, come up to a single, almost like somebody else on this list, except instead of using it to continue grappling the single leg sweep, she uses the single leg to stand because, again, I stress that single leg is one of the safest positions in MMA. Even if you can't get the takedown or that's not your game, it hides your head while you recover. And don't get me wrong, some wrestlers still stop that. But Jacare Souza, number 4. Now, Jacare Souza, obviously, I mean, anything grappling, you could put Jacare Souza and probably come up with a good argument, and no one's really going to question you. But Jacare Souza, he uses not just the half guard as a launching point, like a launching pad. I mean, you go look at the Chris Camozzi finishes, but especially the last one from the armbar. I mean, it's from a half guard, and not only a half guard. Jacare will actually use the double wrist lock. Catch wrestling there. Figure 4 grip, a Kimura grip, sorry, called double wrist lock from catch wrestling. But he used the Kimura grip, and he'll kind of launch from there. And it's not even going for the Kimura half the time, though. Don't get me wrong, he can rip a Kimura. I mean, dude can rip a Kimura, believe me. But he uses it. Look at the birdie, look over here because I want this over here. Just like a lot of guys like the Jan Cabrals, a lot of these guys from the Nova and Yao Camp, if you notice how the Hakran Diaz is, how they'll pass. They'll use the head and arm choke. They don't want the head and arm choke. They're threatening the head and arm choke because they want you focused. Oh, I got to get my arm out of the head and arm choke. But really, they're just passing the mount, passing the side control. They want something else. They just want you to focus up here. And it's really smart. Jacare does the same thing. Randy Couture, obviously, do the Mike Goldberg soundboard. He likes to work from the Turk. It's very true. Obviously, like Mike Goldberg would point out a lot on those classic Randy Couture fights, you'll see him working people against the fence, and it's very hard for them to get up because he was really good at pinning. He was really good at pinning the leg and working ground and pound. Now, Khabib could very easily be on this list. as well. He is not, because I was going to tie him into the Randy Couture talk here. And what I like about what Khabib does is not only does he do the Dagestani handcuff, which was always pretty much just a cross wrist ride variation. As far as, as far as how I was taught it. But if you look, there's also a small detail. He does it really well in the Michael Johnson fight. And Marcelo Garcia would always teach this detail, at least the very few classes I was lucky enough to go there when I lived in New York. And it's about pinning the leg right below, or right above the knee, I should say, on the inside of the thigh. And Randy would do that with a more traditional way. Khabib kind of just almost like just slices his shin across and just stamps it down there. It's another quiet detail. Everyone's focused on the Dagestani handcuffs, but there is a leg pin from a particular spot just above the knee. In fact, it hurts anybody who grapples and has someone that knows how to do pressure. When they just set their shin and dig it in, it just feels like your leg's in a freaking paper cutter. It sucks. All right, next person is the Nogueira brothers. I know, again, I cheated with two here because they both were really good with half guard. Little Nog's mobility went faster. I mean, between him getting hit with the truck early on to, Bob Sapp and Pride. I mean, let's just face it, his trajectory. I mean, there's a reason why he looked like a 50. I remember after the Tim Sylvia fight, he was all messed up and he was like, "Randy, come fight me." And my friend was just still in shock of the finish because he thought Tim Sylvia was going to beat him. And he's like, "How did that guy win? Look at his face. He's all fucked up." And I look at my buddy Sean. I go, "Sean, Nogueira came into this fight with his face looking like that." He goes, "That's a good point." Jesus, Danny, shitting on the Nogueira. Sorry, I love the Nogueira brothers. But Little Nog really would get his game we saw much more through his career demonstration of the half guard game, where they would kind of come up like Jan Jacek for the single leg, but would use that momentum, counting on a sprawl and an overhook and a head push down reaction from the opponent. They would count on that and do that kind of, the old judo trick, the old counter momentum. I push to pull, give to take. And they would come up for the single leg, and then they would kind of Homer Simpson roll underneath, deep half sweep, whatever you want to call it. And they would kind of sweep out of that way. Fabricio Verdum also almost made the list because he would do similar, and he would just use it to get out of dodge. Like, you would see him do it. He'd keep it in his back pocket in the UFC, but he did it a lot in Strikeforce. Verdum did. I love half guard. Sorry, so I could nerd out for a while, but I'm going to end this because it's already 32 minutes. And Damian Maia, of course, that's who I was referring to with Ioane and Jacek as far as the single leg series. He is the master. The half guard dives, the half guard gives, and the half guard sweeps. So those are the best half guard in MMA as far as I think. Ioane Jacek for defense, Jacare Souza for just kind of launch pad everything. Randy Couture with Khabib there as far as ground and pound. Kind of Khabib there. I'm not trying to. I mean, obviously he's the fucking man at it. Nogueira brothers as far as their deep half sweeps, and Damian Maia for just his fucking half guard mastery. He is the master. Quarantine workout regimens. You don't know. You're not going to get any good ones from me. I'm just doing stuff for my shoulder, and as you can see, I'm not the embodiment of fitness you probably want to listen to. So I'm going to be hacking away with my my routine. Got bands, body weights, got a couple kettlebells here, but still not trusting the shoulder enough to use them. Please let me know in the comments, what's your workout regime? Give me some advice, or in the comments if you want to add to the list or you strongly disagree to any of my lists, whether it was the weekly recs as far as 5 lightweight fights worth revisiting, or the weekly focus MMA's best half guard players. I will, of course, like I do last week, and I will do every week, I will tweet these lists. So in case on Twitter, in case you don't want to go through and listen to me rant for a half hour, don't blame you. All right. No more questions in the chat. It's okay. We'll be getting more, hopefully, as these get consistent. I appreciate those of you who dropped in. I really do appreciate it. Again, I'm not going to go back into a full plug, but everything you can find at mixedmartialanalyst.com, at Dan Tom MMA, whether you want to go get at me there or, use this comment section. Probably good, right? I'm a really good YouTuber, you can tell. Yeah, use this comment section. Yeah, that's great. All right, guys. Oh, and I want to give a shout out to the MMA betting sharks, a betting community there, more specifically Tony Casano. Probably butchered your name, Tone, but you're the man. We always banter back and forth on the DMs. He's one of the many listeners that I do that with. I love talking to you guys, interacting. It really means the world. Tony, also a supporter of the show and this program. And again, if you want to support it, like Tony as well, maybe in the future I'll do a Patreon when all this content gets stacked and I get better at it. I don't feel like I deserve to be charging anybody right now, but I do appreciate your guys' support, even if it's just listening. So shouts, Tony. Shouts to all y'all. And until next time, next week, I should say, we've got top 5 shows coming your ways between them, but we'll be back at the same time, same bat channel. Until next time, protect your neck.